Donald Trump wants to impose extra tariffs on car imports.
President Trump announced 25% tariffs are coming on all cars and car parts shipped to the U.S.
There is no way that Canada can win a trade war with the United States.
Mexico, although it has been on the U.S. agenda for many years, with its immigration policies, NAFTA disputes and border wall debates. This time, it appears on the world stage with a completely different issue. On March 27, 2025, Mexico's sudden tariff retaliation announced by the U.S. sent a chill down Washington's spine. Behind the scenes, there are a series of crisis topics, ranging from unfair practices against electric vehicles, harsh confrontations on steel and the automotive industry, and even oil and gas trade. Trump's unexpected move has shaken America's Mexico is our backyard mentality to its foundations, and Canada is watching a diplomatic carnival with bewilderment. The northern neighbor had recently been in a major standoff with Washington over auto tariffs now. The news of Mexico's counterattack is provoking reactions, even in Ottawa, even we didn't foresee this. So while North America is reeling in the midst of trade challenges, the balance between the three neighbors is shifting dramatically. In a surprise press conference on the evening of March 27, 2025, the President of Mexico said, "We do not accept the U.S. tariffs on electric vehicles and automotive restrictions. We will implement our retaliation as soon as possible," stunned both Washington and world community. The auto tariffs announced by the Trump administration are disrespectful to Latin America. On April 3, 2025, we may impose new tariffs. They should be ready for that. Some parts imported from the U.S., especially in the electric car sector, are likely to face serious tariffs in the Mexican market. At the moment, no one can predict the full extent of this retaliation, but the signs are that it will not be a soft step. After all, Mexico has been an important partner of American companies in the same segment, with its rapidly developing electric vehicle production and assembly lines over the last decade. Now the two sides are crossing paths in conflict. Long seen as a U.S. manufacturing base, Mexico plays a key role in the flow of thousands of auto parts to the north. According to 2024 data, total trade between Mexico and the U.S. is close to $800 billion. A significant portion of this is in the automotive sector. Hundreds of billions of dollars worth of parts, raw materials, and finished vehicles cross the border every year, as Trump's auto tariffs on the grounds of national security are set to deal a heavy blow to this flow. Mexico is refusing to sit on its hands. On March 28, 2025, Mexico's economy minister said, "We are reviewing all segments including electric vehicles. If the U.S. imposes unilateral taxes, we will not skimp on reciprocity." Moreover, the new tax package may include surprise regulations on steel, agricultural products, and even American technology companies. Mexico is also hinted that it is looking for alternative trade partners to reduce its dependence on the big neighbor. As such, the reactions from the Canadian side are very interesting. Just 2 weeks ago, Ottawa was locked in a fierce war of words with the U.S. over auto tariffs, and Prime Minister Mark Carney surprised the world on March 27, 2025 by announcing that the U.S. is no longer a reliable partner. "We will launch our retaliatory package on April 2nd. Now with the addition of Mexico's retaliation. On the same day, the foundations of the North American Free Trade Area are being shaken. Canada news bulletins are filled with the words, "We didn't expect Mexico, they even outdid us." Some analysts say if Mexico, the largest production center in Latin America, is making such a drastic move, the U.S. administration may really panic. Because Canada is pushing back separately, and Mexico is pushing back separately, will the Trump administration risk a confrontation on two fronts? Some analysts ask. Reports from the diplomatic corridors in Ottawa suggest that Canadian officials are both pleased and surprised by Mexico's move. There is a common pressure point. Some say, while others are worried that if the process gets out of control, we will suffer a lot of damage. If we get to the bottom of the story, we find some striking facts about the electric vehicle market. According to 2024 data, Mexico assembles around 1 million electric or hybrid parts a year, a significant portion of which goes to the U.S. market. Some U.S. brands are even taking advantage of the lower labor cost in Mexico to support their own electric car lines with parts from there. Now Mexico is planning to target these very lines, saying if unfair tariffs are imposed on us, we will make them pay for it. On March 28, leaked rumors indicated that Mexico's new regulation could hit the logistics lines of many brands from Tesla to Ford's electric models. If Tesla has to deal with Mexico's retaliation, on top of its tax incentive crisis with Canada, production costs could jump. This possibility also creates uneasiness on Wall Street. Did the Trump administration foresee such a comprehensive reaction? Is the question circulating in the stock exchange lobbies. On March 27, 2025, initial reactions from Washington described Mexico's move as an unrealistic threat. However, an unnamed senior White House official said, Trump did not expect such an aggressive move. Now we're watching it closely. Our eyes are now on April 15, 2025, when, as the Mexican president has announced, the retaliation plan could begin. If the Trump administration does not back down by then, Mexico could unleash a shock wave of additional tariffs on U.S. producers. If energy and agriculture are also included in this package, it is estimated that price increases in some products in the U.S. domestic market will quickly be reflected on consumers. In the short term, Mexico's move will hurt American consumers. But Mexico is also risking the loss of the U.S. market. Economists agree it seems that Mexico has already put plans on the table to get rid of its overdependence on the US. Why is Canada's reaction to this situation so interesting? Because Canada is also ready to announce a retaliatory package that will take effect on April 2, 2025. On March 27, Prime Minister Carney said, if necessary, we will review the supply of oil, natural gas, and electricity to the US. Additional tariffs on automotive parts are on the table. Prime Minister Carney said on March 27, with Mexico announcing retaliation. At the same time, the Trump administration feels stuck on two fronts. Both Ottawa, its northern neighbor, and Mexico City, its southern neighbor, have lashed out at the U.S. tariffs. On March 28, it was reported that Trump was caught off guard by such pressure. This may be his last chance to return to the negotiating table. On the Washington front, there is no definite signal of a retreat. Repeating the America First rhetoric, officials insist that both Mexico and Canada are overreacting. Why can Canadians cannot believe this picture? Because the move that surprised everyone in the last period was Canada's own restraint. While Mexico has traditionally been seen as the party that somehow tries to compromise with Washington or is forced to make concessions on the immigration issue, it is unexpected to hear such a hard line from the Latin giant. On March 28, the Canadian press reported, Mexico has broken its century-old diplomatic stance and is putting the U.S. in its place. Even we could not have foreseen this. According to analysts, Canada is already used to reacting to Trump, but the fact that Mexico is catching a similar wave raises concerns that the North American Free Trade Area, formerly NAFTA now USMCA, may not survive, while it is well known that such a large-scale trade war could wear down all three neighbors. There are now two governments in politics that say, we can't give in to actions that put us in a difficult position. Canada and Mexico electric vehicles are at the heart of this story. Speaking in Mexico on March 27, 2025, the Minister of Energy said, the U.S. cannot impose restrictions on us to give its own manufacturers an advantage. In the new era, electric cars will be the engine of the global market, and we will take our share of the pie, he said, sending a clear message to Washington. Already, Mexico is on its way to becoming an electric car production center, where Germany, Japan, and even Chinese manufacturers are investing. If the U.S. continues with tariffs that exclude Mexico in this sector, Mexico says it will reciprocate with vehicles and parts from the U.S. Of course, in this conflict, brands like Tesla could take a serious hit on both sides. On the Canadian side, Tesla's tax incentives will be cancelled, while Mexico will perhaps impose local additional taxes on Tesla. This U.S. origin. Electric cars may now be expensive and disadvantaged in North America. Ultimately, it remains to be seen whether the Trump administration's America First policy will lead to the opposite effect, while trying to protect the U.S. automotive industry. If we recall the critical dates again, April 2, 2025 is the day Canada announced that it would launch retaliation. April 15, 2025 is the date when the president of Mexico said, we will impose new tariffs. So in almost 2 weeks, the Trump administration could be at war on two fronts, on both the northern and southern borders. This multifaceted pressure could lead Washington to think, should we review the tariffs on March 28? Rumors coming out of the White House suggest that no such step has been taken yet, but that the relevant ministries are making new calculations. On the other hand, Canada and Mexico are in a no backing down this time position. Maybe a trilateral summit will be organized, and trade disputes will be discussed. Some say, but it is unclear whether a compromise can be reached between the Trump administration's stance and the patience of Mexico and Canada. Commentators in Canada are puzzled. We didn't think Mexico would react in such a bold way. The perception was that Mexico was dependent on the U.S. for its immigration policies and other issues. Now, Mexico is showing that it has a weapon capable of hitting U.S. producers who rely on it in the supply chain. On the same day, an expert in Ottawa said Mexican automotive exports exceeded $100 billion in 2024, which is no small number if these tariffs start. Many production lines in the U.S. will suffer. Some Canadian officials have even suggested that Mexico and Canada could coordinate with each other to develop a bilateral clampdown strategy on the Trump administration. Already, Canada's April 2nd retaliation is scaring U.S. automotive giants. Of course, the economic cost could be heavy for both sides. Total trade between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico is projected to exceed $1.4 trillion in 2024. Much of this is made up of millions of dollars a day in parts, raw materials, agricultural products, and energy flows. With such intense integration, it is clear that major trade wars would hurt almost everyone. But Trump's unilateral out-of-tariffs move seems to have infuriated both Ottawa and Mexico City. Canada says we will announce a phased retaliation package, while Mexico says our tariffs are coming on April 15th, so they can wait. Both neighbors have turned over a new leaf by saying, "We won't keep quiet about this." Washington's pressure on Mexico on issues such as migration, border security, and drug cartels is well known. But this time, Mexico is responding with the same harshness on the trade front. While Mexico is backing down on migration policies, on trade it is saying it's up to you. You will pay the price. While Canada is saying we can't believe it. Mexico has taken such a hard line that it has surprised us all. Mexico is closely following Canada's stance. If Canada's retaliation comes in early April and ours in mid-April, the U.S. will be shocked and will be forced to return to the table. Some Mexican analysts say such a scenario would be a major diplomatic test for the Trump administration, especially in the upcoming U.S. elections. Trade wars and rising prices could irritate voters. For now, the White House is not signaling any sign of abandoning the America First thesis, but the unexpected scale of Mexico's counterattack could cause concern in Washington. If the U.S. backs down, Trump could be seen as a defeated leader in the eyes of his voter base. If not, he will have to risk a huge trade war with Canada and Mexico. The energy dimension should not be forgotten. Mexico's oil and gas exports are important for some U.S. refineries, but it is not as critical a supplier as Canada. Still, if Mexican trade is cut off, refineries, especially in states like Texas, could face logistical problems. U.S. consumers are also likely to face price increases for some Mexican agricultural products. In short, if this retaliatory package goes into effect, trade along the U.S.-Mexico border could take a major hit. Already backed into a corner on migration policies, Mexico is now playing the trade card to say we don't need the U.S. only for migrants. This, of course, could hurt the country over time. But the Mexican government is of the opinion that we have nothing left to lose. Canada is watching all this closely. On the one hand, it is working on its own retaliation timetable, but on the other, it realizes that it can take advantage of the additional pressure that Mexico is creating. The North American free trade area is today more confrontational than ever. Strategic sectors such as electric vehicles, auto tariffs, steel, aluminum, agriculture, energy are at risk in a chain reaction. As of March 28th, people are asking, did Trump expect Mexico to go this far? The Canadian press has already headlined it as Trump caught off guard. Politicians in Ottawa are already taking a kind of quiet pleasure in interpreting Mexico's tough stance as, we didn't expect this either, but the U.S. will pay for its unspeakable impositions. Because Canada, too, has long complained about Washington's unilateral decisions, the question now is, will Canada and Mexico actually impose tariffs on April 2nd and April 15th, or will a diplomatic compromise be struck at the last minute? A major trade war is inevitable unless Trump backs down, some say. Others speculate that the U.S. doesn't want to lose on two fronts and will try to appease Canada and Mexico's anger with a few minor concessions. In any case, the dynamics in North America are changing. The supply chain between the three countries has already suffered enough from the pandemic, inflation fluctuations, and political tensions. Add to that massive auto tariffs and electric vehicle restrictions, and this storm may bring the long-awaited rupture. Mexico's move, when added to Canada's, will put enormous pressure on U.S. trade. The global supply chain could be in for much more turbulent times, as the U.S. is at the heart of the international market. And can the Trump administration become isolated by taking such a tough line against its allies over alleged unfair trade? We will find out in the next few weeks. What do you think? Will Mexico's unexpected counterattack really push the U.S. into a corner? Or will Trump, as usual, play his bargaining cards and make a last-minute compromise? Will Canada's surprise move shake the North American trade order to its foundations? How much trouble will surprise taxes and the electric vehicle market put giants like Ford and Tesla in? We look forward to your comments. We will continue to closely monitor and report on all these developments. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like, because a trade storm is about to break out in North America. We haven't witnessed such a period in a long time, when Canada and Mexico take drastic steps at the same time. It seems that the spring of 2025 will be very hot, diplomatically and economically, for both Washington, Ottawa, and Mexico City. Let's see where this confrontation will lead.